So Kirby had some interesting thoughts today at the press conference. Wasn't feeling too good about it, was he?
No, he wasn't. He didn't seem too happy when they started getting into the topics of the impending revenue sharing decision that's coming down and how players are kind of being shopped around. And it was very telling, just exactly what he said today that kind of shocked me a little bit. We have the video clip here. It's from Dogs HQ, and we're going to play that now.
Everybody's on pins and needles because we don't know exactly what's going to come out of this. What I do know is that we're going to continue to recruit people who love football, who are passionate about football, and that don't put money as the number one answer. Like, I've never met a really good player that's all they care about. So, like, the 105 number, the NIL number, what's the cap number, what is this going to be? There's stuff going on right now, guys, in college football. I mean, there's people reaching out to have a Zoom call and present all the players they represent that are on teams, including our teams. And they want to invite people to the Zoom so they can watch and see who's going in the portal or shopping who's in the portal before the portal. You want to get on the Zoom and look at all these players and like, well, go somewhere with mine. I mean, it could be one of the most legendary, moments in all of college sports.
Wow. Okay. There's some wild stuff going on. This whole thing about the Zoom calls, like, holy cow.
It's crazy that there are agents, I guess, that are with these kids that are actively propositioning them to other teams as available. They're actively going to head coaches who might have players that could be in their list of guys that are available and telling them that they want to invite people on to see their list of prospects.
Yeah, players that are already on their team, they're guys.
Yeah,
I mean, what the heck?
Like, and Kirby made it sound like that's like not even half of what's going on. Like, I can't even imagine what's going on beyond that.
Like it was a normal thing nowadays.
Yeah,
like what the heck?
And he talked ad nauseum. He said, "Look, we are going to continue to recruit kids who want to be good at football and want to continue to improve, and not the guy who's out there looking for their top dollar. But we also know that Kirby Smart is in the Georgia football business, and when the Georgia football business is good, it's winning. So I want to believe that that's his only truth, but it's probably not. But this whole business about shopping the kids, man, it kind of just makes me sick, right?
Yeah. It sounds terrible. It makes me feel terrible. It's like if a recruiter in your real world, your business, is trying to pitch you as a candidate to your existing company.
Right.
Like, you would get fired.
Right. It's kind of like you're having a negotiation because, once again, in college football, we don't have these players under contract because they're not employees.
It was the kid in basketball who started Ohio State, started at South Carolina, went to Ohio State, back to South Carolina.
I mean, there's kids that were playing in the NCAA tournament, and because the portal opened up, they were in the portal while still playing in the NCAA tournament for their team. Like, that's what Kirby was mentioning. He said what's happening in basketball is absolutely nuts. Like,
well, I mean, that happened during the CFP too.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, it's just no different. It's just annoying as hell.
Yeah. Another thing that he mentioned that I did not know about this whole roster size limit decision is Kirby said that he thinks it's going to lock at the first game of the season, not during the summer at some point. So that means that teams potentially could be carrying more than 105 players right up until their first game. So if you transfer to go somewhere and then they've got to get down to 105 players, you're going to have guys getting cut the week of the season from the team?
Yeah, it doesn't sound very good for the players.
Yeah,
at all.
How is that good for anybody? Like, That is not good for anybody. And the other thing that Kirby pointed out in this whole situation is that with all this money and everything and players shifting around, what is the impact it's going to have to other sports? Other sports are going to start being cut because if teams have to pony up all this money to keep players on their football team and football is their revenue producing sport, they're not going to keep other sports around.
Yep. You'll see at least two sports cut or two teams cut at least for, per school, just because of the Title IX stuff. You got to have certain number of programs for men and women. So
but
if that happens, they're gone.
I think they'll start cutting non-revenue sports. I mean, if you look at across college sports, football, men's basketball, and baseball are the only sports that even are sometimes revenue sports, and baseball is really only a revenue sport in the SEC. And a few schools have some other programs, gymnastics and things like that do really well, but it's not a lot of sports that actually make money anywhere. Doesn't matter who you are. And I remember a few years ago, I think it was Cal was going to cut their baseball team, and they were like top 5 team in the country at that point. And they were cutting their baseball team because they couldn't afford it. And that was before you considered that Cal, who's now in the ACC, was traveling across the country all the time. It's just crazy that this is the situation we're in with very little regulation. This decision will help. It'll start the process, but Kirby's right. If this doesn't get under control, this Wild West world we're living in, it's not good for anybody in the end.
It's really not. And
at the universities, they're lining their pockets with money and the TV executives.
Right. Well, going back to the roster limit thing and, being able to have the players on your roster up until the first game, what do those kids do? Do they just attend class and don't play football anymore? Or are they allowed to practice with them?
Yeah, see, that's what does your roster lock? I would assume that your roster locks at 105, and then anybody who's not on that 105 can't join the team because essentially the whole idea with the 105 on the roster is you're doing away with walk-ons because everybody's going to be paid. Everybody's part of the revenue sharing. So there is no such thing as a walk-on anymore. I guess there will be guys that are on scholarship and that are not on scholarship maybe, but everybody's going to be getting paid. So there's no such true concept as a walk-on anymore. So you're not going to it's I think season, our 2 kickers get hurt and suddenly we're having kicking tryouts.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll still have people able to try out to truly walk on. And if they make the team, then they'll make money.
I guess maybe they are summer practice players, kind of like in the NFL, undrafted free agents who know that they're going to be on an NFL team for this summer. And then their football career is over. They get one extended summer after their college career. Maybe it's something like that, one extended year after high school to be on a summer college football team, and then their career is over.
Do you think that they would be able to have a transfer window for players that didn't make the cuts?
I don't see how you could if you're not locking the roster down until the first week of the season. Could you transfer and you've been practicing with the team? Like, they wouldn't want to let guys transfer somewhere else and give away all their secrets. It's not like, it's not like they were there in the spring, and once you get into fall camp and really those last couple of weeks, you're putting in game plan, you're putting in play calls and everything else. So I don't think you could do that.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I'm just trying to think like what would be best for those players. If they could at least transfer to JUCO or something out of conference, I don't know. Give them something.
Yeah, I don't know if the people making the decision care.
Yeah, but also, when you really think about it, if you're not able to make a 105 man roster, probably don't need to be there anyway.
True. But tell that to Stetson Bennett. Tell that to Dan Jackson. Tell that to Baker Mayfield.
I'm sure they would have been in that 105.
Probably. Tell it to Rudy.
He was offsides.
Yes, it was.
All right. If you haven't yet, hit that like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. It takes 2 seconds. We really appreciate it, and it really helps the show.
Leave us a comment. We want to hear what your thoughts are on the video, and we'll be sure to write you back and let us know what we think as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, moving on to other news, Georgia did have its first scrimmage over the weekend. And so Kirby talked a little bit about it, and there's been a little bit written about it. In Kirby's own words, we've got a long way to go, was how he described it.
That sounds about right.
No, and that for Kirby, that's par for the course.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost boilerplate nowadays.
Right.
Like, they got a long way to go. We don't know.
Yeah. I read, multiple reports. I listened to a few different people talk about what they saw or what reports they had. A common thing was that the defense looked better than the offense overall. The offense had times where it looked really good, times where it looked off, but the defense overall looked pretty strong. Defense won the day, for lack of a better term.
Do you think it's because the defense is better, or is the offense is still not good?
I think it's because the defense is just a little bit more put together at this point. Both offense and defense lost a lot coming into this year, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the difference is, I think on defense, there are a lot more guys who have played a good amount of football. And I also think that there's really more talent on the defense than there is on the offense, too. The offense is relying on some transfers, a couple transfer receivers right now. They're playing without two of their, upperclassmen running backs. So you're relying on kind of two redshirt freshmen and a freshman, as your lead running backs. Offensive line is still a little banged up. Daniel Calhoun got hurt at the end of the week, so he's out for the rest of spring. He was probably going to be your starting right guard coming into the year. And two guys vying for starting quarterback. So it's not like before where you had a Carson Beck coming back or a Stetson Bennett who'd been in the program forever. You've got a little bit of the unknown there. So I think offense just has more of its unknown. It's building its image, and it needed to, because last year was a struggle. The defense,
how great was the April Fool's jokes today? I saw the one about Carson Beck transferring back to Georgia.
I mean, they were all over the place. So I didn't take anything serious today.
I thought it was hilarious.
I know. I meant anything I saw online. I didn't take serious today because everybody was making jokes. But going back to what I was saying, I think the offense just has a ways to go. Now, a couple of things that I did hear about on the defensive side of the football. Chris Cole is going to be a beast at linebacker. You kept hearing it a little bit last year that he was coming on. There is a reason that Damon Wilson transferred. I firmly believe that now. After hearing all the buzz on Chris Cole, they said, really, this Chris Cole is going to be the star. And they said that CJ Allen is the owner of the team. Whereas before, you had an alpha dog on the team who was the leader. It's not just CJ Allen's defense. They said this is CJ Allen's team. And that's impressive. Wow. So
that's very impressive. Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very much a similar situation to Dumas Johnson transferring to Kentucky last year. Everybody, myself included, we were all shocked when that happened, but we weren't necessarily that surprised. Why? Just because we knew CJ Allen got a lot of playing time that year, and he looked great, and there was just a lot of buzz behind it, and he saw the writing on the wall. Okay, this guy's going to get more playing time than I am. I'm going to go to another place where I can at least see the field a little bit more.
Right, or not lose my job as a senior when I'm trying to get to the NFL. And a player like Jamon Dumas Johnson, who was a solid player at Georgia, but is not that physical freak, right? He wasn't going to stand out in the NFL draft room. He needed more tape, and he was scared about losing playing time his senior year. So the chance to go to Kentucky was a good shot for him to continue to be a starter. The buzz on Chris Cole is that he's going to be one of the awesome players on the defense next year. One thing that everybody is really excited for on the offensive side of the ball is Zachariah Branch. From all reports, he's doing well. I think he got to talk to the media a little bit today. They asked him kind of what's the difference about being here at Georgia versus being other places. He says Georgia uses way more hand signals when they call their offense. So he's been trying to get caught up on that. That's not something that I've ever heard a player state before. But this is a guy who, when he was at USC, when he was a true freshman, he was an All-American. Now, he was an All-American as a returner. He hasn't been returning as much the last couple of years as he's kind of moved into, a full-time receiver's role. He still had pretty good catches and yard numbers last year, but didn't really have, he only scored 1 touchdown last year. So he's a little bit of a, smaller in stature guy. He's not 6'2", 6'3". I think he's 5'11", 6 feet. But to me, guy who came up and started out kind of as a special teams ace and then turned into, one of your best receivers. Well, we've certainly had that at Georgia before, and that was Isaiah McKenzie. And so that's the guy that I hope, hey, maybe he develops similar to Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, I would love to see him returning punts. It'd be nice to have a dynamic player back there who could potentially take it to the house. It seems like it's been a while since Georgia's had a player like that consistently be able to return punts.
All right. So the last thing we want to talk about from spring practice is Bo Walker at running back. True freshman being asked to step in with Branson Robinson and Roderick Robinson out injured. So far, it sounds like he's turning some heads. There's some people that saying some of his performances are actually on par with Nate Frazier. He wasn't a hugely recruited guy. He was a high 3, low 4. So, still a good prospect, but not the crazy 5 stars we've had. But they said he's really hardworking and he's really turned some heads out there at practice.
That sounds about right for Georgia when it comes to, some of the big time backs that we've had come through in the past. I think Todd Gurley, he was like a 3 or 4 star out of the Carolinas, and no one really had heard of him, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, he was a 4, but the difference in that class was we had a 5 star also from North Carolina and Keith Marshall.
Right.
And so Keith Marshall
Right.
kind of had all of the press coming in, and Keith Marshall enrolled early where Gurley came in the summer. But I think you started kind of hearing, some of the noise around Gurley in the summertime. And then that first game of the year we played Buffalo, he returned that kickoff and ran for 100 yards and didn't look back after that.
What a debut. That was awesome.
Yeah. So in that same note, Burl, who or what was your favorite freshman running back moment or debut?
That Todd Gurley one is really hard to beat. And honestly, Todd Gurley is like my favorite Georgia running back of all time. I mean, obviously everybody loves Herschel. We should all love Herschel, but I wasn't alive when Herschel Walker was running the ball. I mean, I might have been a baby as it's the junior season. I don't know. But I actually think that as far as like moments goes, I really enjoyed Nick Chubb. I remember one game he was running up the middle and just kind of like a bowling ball hits the line, bounces outside, and then runs directly into a DB, knocks him back, and then he takes a step and then keeps going. And that got the crowd going nuts.
That was in the Auburn game. And I think that was after Gurley got hurt in that Auburn game towards the end of the year in 2014. He ran over I think it was a DB, and he actually went out of bounds. They ended up calling it back, but I remember the exact play. That was kind of, he had already kind of announced himself because Gurley had been suspended. And that was the first game of Gurley being back. And of course, it was when he ended up tearing his ACL. But
the only game he was back.
So Nick Chubb was absolutely fantastic. Now, for me, not necessarily my favorite player because it was on a different team, but a distinct freshman whoa moment I remember was in 2005. Georgia was playing Arkansas at home. The game that DJ Shockley goes down with the injury. We were undefeated coming in, and Arkansas wasn't very good, but they had this running back that you started hearing a little bit about. And they gave him it was a toss sweep or something, and he went like 90 yards and just blew away the whole entire Georgia defense that ended up winning an SEC championship. It was a really good defense that year. And I was like, who is this kid? Oh, that was Darren McFadden, who's one of the best running backs in SEC history. And that was a day where I was like, okay, that's a freshman and that's a man.
Yeah, I remember being at that game and just thinking, what the hell is going on? And this is late in the season. And
it was bad because it was right before Florida.
Exactly.
Shockley got hurt, and then he couldn't play in the Florida game. Georgia went in that game undefeated, ended up losing that Florida game. And then he came back the next week against Auburn, and we ended up losing that game in the last minute. And kind of derailed what could have potentially been
that could have been a national championship year,
right?
And if we would have won that Florida game, Joe Tereshinski would go down in history as having one of the most amazing touchdowns in Georgia history.
God, we lost that game like 13-7.
I know. Was that the one where Terrence Edwards like jumped and dropped the ball at the end?
That was in 2002. Terrence Edwards was a senior in 2002. That's when. That's the only game we lost in 2002. But yes. Yeah,
that was back when, Florida was a mental block for Georgia.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Up next, we're going to move on from Georgia. A little update on the conversation we've had over the last few weeks related to spring games. So, Colorado and Syracuse got together, and Deion Sanders and Fran Brown were all gung ho to do the joint practice spring game stuff. But Mr. Old NCAA stepped in and said, not this year. And in their statement that they put out, they said that the reason that they denied it was because it wouldn't be fair to other teams that already had their spring games, so they couldn't do it. And this would be a chance to really, draw attention to the program and have this game on TV. And it would be
who's had their spring game?
A few people have already had their spring game.
Really?
Not well. Remember, lots of schools also canceled their spring games. So,
still.
But that was the reason. The reason was competitive balance. But if you read it as I did,
competitive balance in the NCAA.
Yeah,
that's the biggest BS answer I've ever heard. Ever.
Exactly.
Oh God.
As it was spelled out and as I read it, this is going to happen probably next year. It's going to be cleared next year. So
I'm going to start using that excuse for just random things. Competitive balance. We can't do that.
Yeah. In other Deion Sanders related news,
speaking of competitive balance.
Yeah. Deion got a new contract, and oh my God, for a man who has never won more than 9 games at the FBS level, he is making a lot of money.
Good for him, man. Good for him.
5-year extension, $54 million. They joked that was like more than Deion made in his entire career in the NFL.
That might actually be true.
And somebody went on and said, that really he's worth it because of the notoriety he's brought to the Colorado program. But it still amazes me that Deion Sanders is now a top 10 paid coach in the NCAA. He's only been a coach in FBS for 2 years. He's never won 10 games at the FBS level, and he's never even competed for a conference title.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if they agreed on this before when he was interviewing with those other teams, like in the NFL, because everybody thought he was going to go to the NFL. I'm wondering if that is what led to this. More than likely, I would think so. But it seems like it's a year too early,
That's the thing. He's shown improvement in his 2 years at Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he's done a lot for that program. And I know the money and the notoriety is there, but it does seem like it's a little bit early to make a top 10 paid head coach who's, like I said, never even won 10 games at the FBS level.
This year will show us how good of a coach Deion really is in terms of, like, we know he can recruit. He got, he's still the freshman quarterback coming in.
Yeah, Juju Lewis.
Juju Lewis. And, we'll see what else he pulls in. If he's able to win 10 games, this upcoming season, I mean, that it's a very good chance that gets you into the playoff, being in the Big 12.
Yeah. I mean, this is an extension too, so I'm not sure how many years he had left on his previous deal. But this gives him a long runway. Now, obviously, if for whatever reason he's not successful, Colorado is tied into a lot of money for the next few years. But I wouldn't think it's the Jimbo Fisher contract where, like, for them to fire him, it's $80 million.
Right. Yeah, at least he has a track record of showing the improvement. And you look at who he's bringing on his staff; they're Hall of Famers across the board.
Yeah, we've got Marshall Faulk and is coming in to coach running backs, I know, and Warren Sapp is coming on to coach D-line, and had one other person last week. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, you're right. It was like 3 NFL
Hall of Famers.
Yeah, so
I mean, that's pretty good.
Coaches as well.
Yeah, exactly. He's gonna his whole coaching staff could be all pro NFL team at some point.
It's like it's the ultimate recruiting team, just because all the kids on the team had played him on Nintendo when they were little kids.
Yeah. I wouldn't learn from Warren Sapp. I would want to learn from Marshall Faulk. I mean, if I'm a running back, hell yeah, I'm going there.
Dude, one of the best all-purpose backs to ever play in college or in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, that year he was up for the Heisman, and he didn't win it, and Garrison Hurst didn't win it. Who won it that year? What was that? Gino Torretta that year?
It was Gino Torretta. Yep.
Yeah. So Gino Torretta won the Heisman in the same year that you had Garrison Hurst and Marshall Faulk. and I think it was because Miami was good, Georgia was good, but not that great. They weren't undefeated or anything. And then Marshall Faulk was at San Diego State. So
Georgia did beat Kirk Herbstreit's Ohio State team that year.
Excellent.
I think that was the only year Ray Goff had 10 wins.
Well, when you've got a Heisman Trophy candidate at running back, that helps.
Oh, that was one of my favorite teams. You had Garrison Hurst. You had Eric Zier, might be my favorite Georgia quarterback, and Andre Hastings as your triplets there.
Was Goldberg still on that team?
I have no idea.
Okay. That may have been right after he was gone. He's around that time, though. But all right.
If you haven't yet, hit that like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. It takes 2 seconds. We really appreciate it, and it really helps the show.
Leave us a comment. We want to hear what your thoughts are on the video, and we'll be sure to write you back and let us know what we think as well.
Absolutely.
So our next update is another follow-up to a story we talked about last week. Andrew Luck, as we mentioned last week, had fired the coach at Stanford. Well, they hired a replacement. It wasn't Chuck Pagano, but it was another former NFL head coach who is being brought in for 1 year only while they do a full search. And that coach is Frank Reich. What do you think about that,
former Indianapolis Colts head coach?
Frank Reich
as well.
Correct.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, we were talking about that, last week, and for it to be kind of a bridge job, or it's almost interim. I mean,
I think they labeled him as an interim head coach.
Okay, that's good.
1 year, yeah.
That's good. So that sets him up pretty well to really do a thorough search and find the person that they really, really want, and get them prepared for the next draft class and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I made memory of Frank Reich is when he was quarterback for the Bills that year in the playoffs when Jim Kelly got hurt, and they played that game against Houston where they were down like 38 points at halftime or whatever, and he led them on the biggest comeback in NFL history.
Yep.
I just remember that because I used to play as the Bills on Tecmo Super Bowl all the time when I was a kid, and Jim Kelly was on the game, but he was one of those guys that didn't sign the NFLPA agreement, so he was quarterback Bills. and he always got hurt every season that you played with him. So you always had to play with Frank Reich.
Nice.
Always.
Yeah, all that just to lose to what, Jeff Hostetler? Was that the year they lost to the Giants?
They lost it. Yeah,
sure.
Hostetler, and then Aikman a couple times, and Mark Rippon when they played the Redskins.
Oh yeah, Mark Rippon.
Yeah.
The Mark Rippon.
One other thing that came out in recent days was ESPN every year kind of does this list that they've been working on for the last few years, where they have the top 90 quarterbacks of the 2000s. And every year they kind of update it based on what's happened the year before. And I don't know exactly what the criteria is for the best quarterbacks of the 2000s, the top quarterbacks. But just in looking at the list, and I didn't see the whole list, but I did see the top 25. The fact that Stetson Bennett is not in the top 25 really, really bugs me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. It's weird because they have Baker Mayfield as number one, but I don't recall him winning any national championships.
No, and much like Stetson Bennett, he was a walk-on.
Exactly.
So he wasn't viewed as this great talent. Now, he put up crazy numbers and was awesome and did end up getting drafted number one in the NFL and has turned into a pretty solid NFL quarterback. But
yeah, well, it's a weird list because you know Baker Mayfield had the crazy stats, but then you have Cam Newton, who really only had 1 year of college football, and it was an amazing year.
Yeah, he had 1 year. Well, 1 year at the FBS level, 1 year JUCO that he started.
Yeah, I didn't count.
And they won a JUCO national championship. So he won 2 national titles, but granted, one was JUCO and one was at Auburn. But yes, for that year alone. But if you were really going on guys who were really 1 year wonders, Joe Burrow at 5. I mean, come on, like
Joe Burrow had the single greatest quarterback season ever.
And I guess you could say that Cam Newton's team was less talented because, let's admit it, that Auburn team was Cam Newton, Nick Fairley, and nothing else.
Yeah.
And Joe Burrow had talent all around him. But Joe Burrow started for 2 years. So they're right there 2 years. And he beat Georgia, at LSU. And he played a little bit at Ohio State before. But then you continue on the list. Joe Burrow was 5th. So you're like, well, if Joe Burrow is 5th, who's ahead of him? Well, at 3 is Vince Young. Vince Young obviously was an amazing quarterback his senior year, won a national championship, was a couple years starter. So I could see Vince Young there. Number 4, Tim Tebow, obviously 3-year starter, though Florida fans will tell you he was a 4-year starter. He was not the starter in the 06 national championship team. That was Chris Leak.
Right. He was not a starter, but he was a big time contributor in the running game.
Yes. They had the Tim Tebow package.
Yeah. Tebow left and then the jump pass.
Yeah. But just looking at this list in the top 5, obviously Stetson wasn't even in the top 25. But if you're looking at guys who really put up big numbers and led their team to victory, Matt Leinart, they won 2 national championships. One got stripped. So I guess you could say the other guy who won 2 national championships is also not on this list. Kellen Moore, quarterback at Boise State,
That's
who
a
won
good
all
one.
those games. Obviously now Dylan Gabriel, and I think that was part of the paragraph above was about Dylan Gabriel, just because of.
If we're going stats, who's the Miami kid, or not Miami, Hawaii kid, Colt Brennan.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on stats, Colt Brennan or Cliff Kingsbury or BJ, any of those guys that played at Texas Tech, including Mahomes, ran those crazy numbers up there. But like I said, it's a subjective list, and they change it every year. But my question to you, Burl, is, we're Georgia guys, and we have our favorite quarterbacks that played at Georgia. Obviously, we've talked about Stetson a lot. I was friends with David Green growing up. But for you, who's your favorite non-Georgia quarterback of all time?
That's a great question. I'll have to think about this a minute. While I think about that, what would be your top 5?
My top 5 quarterbacks of the 2000s. Let's see. So I think number 1 for me, I think you have to go Tebow at 1 for his impact. He won the Heisman. He won a national championship. I put Tebow at 1. I'd probably put Vince Young up there in the top 5, probably at 3. So where he was, I'd probably put Burrow at 2. So I'd probably put Tebow, Burrow, Vince Young. Let's see. Matt Leinart probably at 4. And then probably Stetson Bennett at 5. Because to me, those are the guys who were impactful that won. They were great players for their teams, put up good numbers. That's what I would do. I value winning.
I like it. Okay. My favorite non-Georgia QB. This is a tough one. I got it down to two people, and they are polar freaking opposites.
I've got a good one. So I've got one that for a long time I've spoke about. So let's hear yours, and then I'll give you mine afterwards.
My first choice is Michael Vick.
Michael Vick was fun to watch in college, man.
Yes, he was. He was awesome. He was fun to watch in Atlanta. Loved him until all the crap went down. So the other guy that I really like as a quarterback is Peyton Manning. That might be sacrilege being a Georgia fan, but you can't deny he's one of the best to ever do it. And yeah, Peyton Manning.
Yeah, so my favorite college quarterback of all time that's obviously has no tie to the Georgia program is Nebraska quarterback Tommy Frazier.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dude, go back and watch some Tommy Frazier highlights. They beat the crap out of Florida in that national championship game where he had that like 70-yard run where he basically broke the tackle of every team. But even look at his freshman year when he was the quarterback at Nebraska. They played Florida State in that Orange Bowl, and everybody had presumed Florida State was going to win the national championship. They had one loss. They'd lost to Notre Dame, but this Nebraska came in and they didn't stand a chance. Nebraska missed a game-winning field goal at the end of that game. If they would have made it, Nebraska would have won 3 national championships in 4 years.
Those Nebraska teams were crazy. It was crazy how dominant they were.
They were so good, and he was so good at running that option. Ridiculous. And they had Lawrence Phillips. Yes, he was drugs and all the problems, but Lawrence Phillips and Tommy Frazier in the backfield.
Yeah.
They were so good. He was such a fun player to watch. Just he could throw it too. I mean, he didn't a lot. They ran a lot, but that's my favorite old school player. If I want to like put on some good old highlights of when football was for men days, put on some highlights of Tommy Frazier.
Who was Nebraska's quarterback? The white kid who won the Heisman.
Eric Crouch.
Eric Crouch, yes. He was fun to watch.
He was fun, but he was no Tommy Frazier.
No, not even close. But he won the Heisman, or didn't he?
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
Okay, my brain still works a little bit. That's good.
They had a lot of good quarterbacks running that Tom Osborne offense. They had.
Yeah, I was definitely not going to say Gino Torretta.
No. He was at the U, man.
Actually, you know who my favorite non-Georgia quarterback is whoever is the quarterback at Wisconsin, because they're all the freaking same.
except they got Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that was it. That was the only year they broke the trend. I always swear it's the same guy.
Another name that probably nobody listening to this podcast, except for very few, will know is a guy who played at Georgia Southern by the name of Jason Foster. When Paul Johnson left and they had a new coach come in, they kind of went, because they were, an option offense, they kind of went to like a hybrid offense. So he was a quarterback as a freshman, and then he played running back, and then he played receiver, and then he switched back to quarterback by the time he was a senior. And he was like the FCS or whatever, 1AA player of the year. My stepbrother, who was at Georgia Southern at the time, loved Jason Foster. just an amazing, like, his career numbers are insane because he has really, really good passing numbers, really, really good rushing numbers, and really, really good receiving numbers because he played all the positions. So that's one to look up.
He was Georgia Southern's Hines Ward.
Yeah, absolutely. He was.
I love Hines Ward. He might be my favorite Georgia player ever.
He's a good one.
They need to bring him and put him on staff. He needs to be in the wide receivers room.
But he was on Arizona State staff this year.
I know.
Like the excuse before was that he had never been a coach, but he was on Arizona State. He was their wide receiver coach this year. So
come on, Kirby.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Make it happen. Bring him home. He wants to be here.
I know.
He's made it known, right? Like,
it's weird, but I don't know. It's weird. We have all the guys from those teams, you know. Why isn't he here?
I know. Yeah, because you got Kirby, you got Bobo, you got Muschamp.
Yep.
Oh, they need to bring Richard Seymour.
Man, I was a freshman. Richard Seymour's last year when we had Seymour and Stroud, and Charles Grant. God,
oh man,
that defensive, like that 2000 team. If Quincy Carter could stop doing drugs, man, that team would have been so good.
Well, I think he was also good because he was doing some drugs.
That's true. You'd see him driving around in his white Cadillac all over town.
Hey, I will always have an appreciation for Quincy Carter because he was the one that finally beat Tennessee after a decade. I had never seen Georgia beat Tennessee, and I was there.
That was my freshman year. And funny story is, my 5 years as a student, that's the only game I couldn't get tickets to and did not attend in person.
Wow. I actually went to that game. I was still in high school, and I went with my dad and some buddies, and that was one of the best nights ever. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. What'd you think about that Cena Cody Rhodes promo this week?
I thought it was great. I loved it. The little jabs and the subtle things that John Cena does so well that other people don't do. Like when Cody first came out and kind of took the mic and said, "No, I'm going to talk," and Cena kind of at first had bowed up and then kind of backed away. Like that kind of made you appreciate that he's feeling threatened. Whereas usually Cena's whole thing was he came in and verbally eviscerated whoever he wanted to, right? So I think that really helped. But I thought it was fun, man. I thought it was
great. I was super impressed with Cody. I mean, I felt like he actually did just as well as Cena in the promo. Although Cena's promo was so smooth. It's just the way he did everything. Like he'd walk away and he'd come back and say something like right in his face.
That's because he's that good at that.
He is.
I mean, that's his whole career, man. His whole career is ripping people apart. Like he's the only person who basically broke The Rock.
Yeah.
Like okay, he broke Austin Theory. Who cares? But he broke The Rock, dude. Like.
Yeah, that line about making money for billionaires instead of spending their kids.
Right.
That was awesome.
What did he say? He said, "I make empires for billionaires. All you do is waste billionaires' kids' money."
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
really
line.
Good.
So
obviously we are not John Cena, so
we suck.
Yeah, we do. We're not going to cut an awesome promo.
No.
We can barely string 3 words together.
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up for this week. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet on YouTube, please do. It really helps us grow. And next week, Burl, are you going to be podcasting next week? I am going to be on spring break. What's your plans?
Probably will. It'll be a game time decision, but right now let's plan on doing it.
All right. So if you don't hear from us next week, we will be back the following week. We are both headed to G-Day, and so we will give our live report from that, and we will also have our WrestleMania preview. So if you're interested, be sure to to tune into that show. But until next week, I'm Street.
I'm Burl.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.